grew up in Roxbury. I have to first go to history, and I want us to think about how we treated people who were on crack in this city of Boston, in that same neighborhood, and how we failed them. How we didn't do any, at that time, it was three strikes rules, RICO cases, mandatory sentencing, lock them up and throw away the key. That's what we did in our city of Boston, in the state of Massachusetts, in the United States of America, to folks who had the same issues around addiction. But their faces were different. They lived in different neighborhoods. And so I just want to just take a pause, and ironically, today is Juneteenth, the day that the last slaves in Galveston, Texas, actually found out that they were free. So this is an irony right now that we are having this conversation today, where 20 years ago, 30 years ago, we were having a very different conversation in the faces. And had we treated those families and those residents with dignity, respect, and the advocacy that they need and that we see right here today, many lives would have been saved. Millions of dollars in the failed war on drugs would have been saved in our Commonwealth in the United States of America. And we would actually know a whole lot more about addiction and what needs to happen. Mm-hmm. And so I'm a little heavy-hearted on this issue right now because I grew up in the same neighborhood. And there are people in that neighborhood who went through a whole lot, in particular in the Orchard Gardens, which was called Orchard Park back in the day. And so I just think we need to be mindful of what is going on in our city. And I think a couple other issues that we should be thinking about is the responsibility of the city of Boston in exacerbating the issues that have happened in that area by closing the Long Island Bridge and pushing people out of detox. Actually, first off, condemning a bridge and then putting people on top of that same bridge after it was condemned. Pushing people out of detox, and people died. And that blood is on the hands of the Boston Public Health Commission, the city of Boston, and it happened on our watch. And that has exacerbated the situation there. In addition, that is further conflated with the closure of the city's own methadone clinic. And where did those patients go? Interestingly, those patients were relocated to a facility closer to this area. So I don't know Vancouver. I've never been to Vancouver, but I definitely daggone know what happens on Melnia Cass and on Mass Ave. And I know the city of Boston is complicit in exacerbating the situations that have happened in that area, regardless of whether we have a SIF or not. It happened on our watch, and people died. And people are dying because of the actions of the city of Boston, and a tent ain't gonna fix it. And so, as we have this conversation, what I know is the state of Massachusetts has failed the city of Boston in permitting methadone clinic after methadone clinic after methadone clinic in the same area. And so I don't have a lot of trust in the state of Massachusetts on these matters and these issues. Do I think that people need help? And do I see a very strong human face to this? I don't want to hear, and I went to a neighborhood association, there were 14 overdoses last summer in a half a block area. That's happening on our watch, and we got to fix that. And I want to hear more stuff about how we deal with these issues. That's very real. And I appreciate that physicians are stepping up on these matters. And I need to self-disclose that I did pharmaceutical sales in that first slide. Right? I sold a product called Cadian. It was an extended release morphine. Nobody wanted it. They didn't want it because they wanted OxyContin when I was doing sales back in the day. And it's only gotten worse. So what I need to know is that people who live in these neighborhoods and in these communities, folks who do business and risk their own capital in those neighborhoods and communities are going to be on this board. Because what I do know is the McDonald's, it's a great gentleman that used to own that. He sold it. The gas station, very nice person used to own that. They sold it. So there has to be a community voice at the table on these issues, because time after time after time, the state of Massachusetts has failed the city of Boston on these issues, with a hyper concentration of methadone clinics in that area. And I guess I would also just note, I hear you on the deferred cost. Every single time somebody ODs in that area, the police, ambulance, and fire are all called. And I would love to hear through the chair the numbers relative to those calls and a cost associated from our fire department, police department, as well as ambulances. I think that's a critical component. And I think we need to look at that as savings in the future. But I also know that there is a disproportionate amount of burden that is felt by a specific small part of the city of Boston. Now, we got to listen to folks who live in those neighborhoods, who are having their doors kicked in on a regular basis, who are dealing with, sadly, issues. And I had someone who had a door broken, who had something stolen that was exponentially less valuable than that door. So we also have to look at it from a quality of life perspective for those folks. And there could be a compelling case there. But I just know that it is absolutely critical that something is done. But I know as a local elected official that the state of Massachusetts has not served us well. And I would ask, and through the chair to the doctor, that you demand that there is local representation from folks who live in that neighborhood, live in that community, do business in that community on that board. Because that is the highest concentration of distribution of methadone, I believe, in the state. If someone can show me someplace else, then that would be fine. Again, I thank you for this. I think we have to be thoughtful. We have to look at the data around these issues, and we have to be thinking about how we save folks' lives. I would also note, if we're not having a conversation about detox beds on demand, then we're not having a real conversation. If we're not having a conversation about increasing the needle distribution in the city of Boston, we're not having a real conversation. I see the folks back there, but there's not enough of them. They work their butts off every single day. And if we're not having a real conversation and listening to the people who are on the ground, then we are actually doing ourselves a disservice and wasting folks' time. I want to thank the two co-sponsors of this. This is the issue of our time in the United States of America post World War II. We're going up every single year in life expectancy. Last year's numbers, we saw for the first time in a long time, we actually saw life expectancy in the United States go down. And I deal with a district from Back Bay to Roxbury that has a 33-year difference in life expectancy. My wish and hope for the city of Boston is that that we move towards the 91.9 in Back Bay versus the 58.9 that is the life expectancy in Roxbury currently. That is actually lower than that of the life expectancy in Gambia and lower than that of the life expectancy in Iraq. So I'm all ears and thinking about things that we can do, but it has to be measured, thoughtful, and inclusive of people in our neighborhoods and communities, and also the businesses in those neighborhoods.